Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us and listening through the epic music of the introduction. I think, yeah. Anyway, glad to be with you tonight. We've promised to show you a little bit about fixture locations. And after that, we will be open for, well, any questions really, a Q&A session. Of course, if you have questions related to fixture locations, then I will try to answer those first. And after that, I'll be taking pretty much any questions. So if you want, you can start typing any questions in the chat already, and we'll have some ready for when I'm done with the fixture locations. So let's kick off. Let's switch to Capture. So fixture locations is actually what I would call a concept in Capture, because it's a little bit more than just a property of a fixture. But this is the central part. So we have a property called location available when we select a fixture. That same property is also present in the Fixtures tab in the first column here. So if we scroll down to that fixture, it reads LX11, which is the same thing as it reads here in the selected items. If we look closely, you can see that there's also a small arrow before the LX11. And now, if you could press a button for the TV, please, or I will lose the extra image. It's threatening to turn off on the remote control. Sorry for that, yeah. Thanks to EU regulations, the TV studio turns itself off after, anyway. Fixture locations. We've got a small arrow here right in front of the LX11. And that's because the LX11 location information comes from elsewhere. It's being pulled into the fixture. And the place it's being pulled from is actually the pipe that the fixture is hung on. So if we select the pipe and go to selected items, then we have a location property here that reads LX11. So if I change this, let's just append the word test and then select the fixture again. Then the location is now LX11 test. So Capture finds the nearest item with a location. That can be a truss or a pipe in this case, and a few other things actually. But if there is something close enough to the fixture that has a location, then the fixture automatically inherits that location. This becomes clear if I zoom out a bit and move the fixture far away from the pipe. Then the location field blanks out because there's nowhere now to pull the location from. And if I move it back to the truss, if I could only remember where it was, then it's pulling in that LX11 test location again. Now, if the fixture is somewhere where there is no location information available, or you're not happy with the automatic location for whatever reason, then of course you can edit directly and enter, I don't know, LX custom, anything you want really. And that is now the location of that fixture. Down here. Now, if you change your mind and you don't want to override the location anymore, but you simply want to inherit the nearest location. So if I move the fixture back on the pipe and I want it to read LX11 again, then I can simply blank out the text in the location, and automatically it's now inheriting that pipe location again. If you are on Capture 2024 or older, then the pipe did not have a location property. Capture was using the unit property. So this was a change in 2025 because it was a bit, cryptic. So now it's called location on the truss or pipe as well as the fixture. So what can we do with the location apart from simply specifying it? Well, for one, it is a column in the fixtures tab, and that means I can sort by the location and, for instance, quickly grab all fixtures on LX17. So I can use it as a searching tool, I guess, a way of quickly finding and selecting fixtures. And since it is a column in this view, I can also filter by it. So I can filter by LX11 and, well, narrow down an otherwise large list of fixtures to make life easier in the Fixtures tab. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do is a command in the Edit menu, which is called Select All by Location. And this group of commands in the menu is based on the idea that you have already selected something, and then you want to also select everything that is on the same layer or at the same location or is of the same fixture type, for instance. But we're working with locations, so let's take a look at this one. If I select all by location, then Capture adds all other fixtures at the same location to my selection. I know some people, when they work with fixtures and trusses, they like to group everything together. That is one way of working. It's perfectly valid. Another way of working is using commands like select all fixtures on truss, which often means the same thing as select by location, but not always. And finally, there's also now the option of selecting by location. So Capture provides a few different options on how to select fixtures related to each other, and using the locations concept is one of them. And just a friendly reminder that we will be going over to the Q&A in a bit, so if you have any questions, then you are welcome to start sending them in, assuming you have any. I can't imagine you don't. Next, let's take a look at another aspect of locations, and that is in reports. So, of course, if we create a fixture report, then you should definitely use a better paper size than the one I have here. But either way, there is a location column here. So of course locations are listed in reports. But what we can also do, for instance, is use that location property of a fixture and add that column to grouping. And what this does is it breaks down the otherwise long list of fixtures into fixtures by location. So now we can see that there is a block here with fixtures on LX17 and another one with fixtures on LX22. And that is done by selecting the location column and adding it to grouping. There is another report that more or less does this out of the box, and that is the fixture locations report. This also has a lot fewer columns selected, so it fits on a paper. But here you can see the same concept, basically of a list of locations and what is on each location. And that pretty much concludes the locations concept in Capture. We have some plans on how to build on this in the future, of course, but it's already relatively powerful, and hopefully a lot less cryptic now that the pipe itself has a property called location. So with that, I'm going to move over to your questions, and we will be starting with Gabriel Baudo, who asks, how can we have the location floor? Meaning that some objects, well, anything placed on the floor would then be on that location. So you can always have a location by selecting objects and simply typing floor as the location. In this case, this is your only option. We don't have anything that locates objects in an area like that. Although it's an interesting idea that you would be able to basically define an area and anything within it would be of that location. So thank you for that feature request. But at the moment, you would have to assign that location manually to those fixtures. Lamarama writes that locations make more sense now, which I am happy for. Thank you. So we shall move on to the next question by Lamarama, related to plans of developing customization options in the Fixture tab and similar tabs. In terms of like reordering the columns, maybe selecting columns and things like that. All I can say is that we do have plans for this. So this will be the first official teaser for Capture 2026. So we have the year split in two halves. The first half after the release, we tend to market what we've done, and in the second half, we are allowed to tease a few things. So some of the things you ask for here, Lamarama, will be in Capture 2026. So there will be some column customization available. So moving on to Oliver Waits has a question. Oliver is asking, can we display the fixture location as a legend on the bar in the 3D view? That is an excellent question, to which I'm not even sure I have the answer. But I have the software here. So issue number one will be that Capture is not able to show what we call annotations in a 3D view. So none of the labels that we are able to show here in the plot view are actually available in 3D. So actually it's not possible to have any legends in 3D at the moment. However, in plan view, apart from the fact that the color looks weird here, but I think that's got to do with our streaming setup. There are some options available for an annotation where you can show various bits of information. Unfortunately, location is not among the things you can have shown automatically. You can type in a manual text and show some other things like dimensions and so on, but the location never comes automatically in the annotation. But again, thank you for the feature request. And I will be moving on to the next question by Vincent Dupuy. Vincent says, I've sent an issue request on the forum about the scale of the plots, but nobody answers. So this is an excellent opportunity to point out that our forums, specifically the issues section and how to down here, they are under what we call community support. That means that we encourage other Capture users to help each other in matters that are maybe not very urgent. We monitor these discussions, and if we see that no one has given a good enough answer in some amount of time, we try to step in and answer. But at any point, if you need, let's say, timely support, I would warmly recommend that you email support@capture.se instead. That's the only way of knowing that you will get fast support. Now, when it comes to the scale of plots, I can talk about that. And actually, what we're talking about is the scale of plot views in plots. So if we look at this plot view here, for instance, there is an option to show the scale. When I enable this, the current scale of the view appears in the lower right corner of the plot. And if I zoom the view, you can see this being reflected in the scale. And the scale here is dependent on the size of the view, to some extent, how much I have zoomed the view, and finally the size of the paper. Now, if you want to use a fixed scale, it's not practical to sit and zoom until you hit 1 to 100. So what you can do is edit the scale property and enter the scale you want it to be. But keep in mind that if you resize the view, because the zoom level is tied to the height of the view, then that will result in changing the scale. So that scale only remains the way you typed it as long as you don't resize the view. So if you have multiple views in the plot and you want to make sure they are the same scale, then you will have to enter that scale into every plot. And finally, also worth mentioning is that the symbols in the plot symbol key, they are not to any scale. In fact, they are simply adjusted to a scale that matches the text size of the symbol key. And I know that there is a feature request to have the scale of the symbols in the symbol key match the scale of the plot view. Which is a good feature request, but there are actually a number of complications that play into this. It's the fact that you can add multiple views to a plot in different scales. And there's a number of ways of scaling the symbols, even per fixture. So I could select this neat hammer here, for instance, and say, I want the scale of this fixture symbol to be larger. And at that point, of course, you're completely game over here if you want to have the same scale in the symbol key as you have in the drawing. That's not to say that we don't want to try and find a solution, but I just want to point out that there's a number of pitfalls here, which are also good to be aware of, and powerful tools by themselves. Anyway, let's move on to the next question by Alfonso Torralba. Hi Lars, we need one thing for 2025. I hope you mean 2026. Please, when you save the design in AutoCAD, the DWG file format, I presume, make sure the file size isn't so large so that people opening it in AutoCAD can work more easily. They complain a lot. So first of all, I would, if you haven't already asked this in the feature request forum, I would suggest that you do that. The one comment I would add is that the DWG file format supports parametric models, which means that if you draw a cylinder, everything that AutoCAD needs to store is the radius and the length and the position and orientation of the cylinder. It doesn't need to store any polygons. Capture also has this type of cylinder, so if you add a cylinder from the library, the project file again only contains the radius, length, and position of the cylinder. But the moment you convert between Capture and DWG, for instance, it becomes nigh on impossible to keep that kind of information. So what happens is you have to save basically all the polygons. And this is what tends to grow the file size when you go to DWG from Capture, for instance. Things like trusses in Capture use very little space in a Capture project file, but when you take all the polygons into DWG, they grow a lot. And that's very hard to do anything about, to be honest. But we can always take a look and see if there is anything that could be done. Then we have another question from bdubsdet. He's asking if there's a way to previs pyro with actual fixtures from the library outside of the FlameJet. Unfortunately, there is not. We do not have any manufacturer-specific special effects in the library. So I don't really have anything better for you there. Then we have another question from Vincent Dupuy asking if it's possible to display the XY location of fixtures on the plots as it's possible for the rigging points. So let's create a new project. The answer will end up being no, but let's do something. So if we take a rigging point and add it to the design, what you can do in Capture for the rigging point is enable the show coordinate option. What this does is it shows the coordinate of choice automatically in the plot. So if I move it, it updates. And we are able to choose which coordinates we get, so we can have X, Y, for instance, or other combinations are available too. This option, however, only exists for rigging points, so it's not possible to do this for fixtures. The only creative workaround I could think of is actually combining every fixture with a rigging point, but that's not practical. So again, I will thank you for the feature request, and we'll keep that in mind for the future. Then we have another question from Vincent regarding or saying, if you put the little view on the big view displaying the grid, you will see that the two views don't really have the same scale. To be perfectly honest, I don't quite follow. It could be referring to what happens when you have multiple views with the grid enabled and the scale. So if we set the same scale here, then the grids should align. As far as I can tell, they do align. If they don't align for you, I think you will have to send us your project file. There might be something else going on that I can't think of off the top of my head. Apart possibly from the fact that you can also edit the grid size, so you could even set different grid sizes in different views if you need to. Moving to a question from Federico Lafuente. Hello Lars, will be nice to copy the label arrangement of one fixture to paste it to other lamps. Presumably we are talking about this here, which we call the annotation, the channel DMX and circuit information that is movable if you enable plot adjustments, movable and rotatable, and of course there are also some configuration options per fixture. So if you have made some choices here for one fixture, there is currently no way of copying them to other fixtures. But if you select multiple fixtures at a time, then any options you make here, they do apply to all of the fixtures. So if I change the scale here, for instance, it applies to all of them. And if you use the select only tail annotations command, for instance, you can easily grab multiple annotations and modify them the same way as, well, not as a group really, but all of them together. So I think the trick would be, if possible, to think ahead of what you want to do with a large amount of lights, select them, and do that kind of mass editing, if possible. Nice idea, though. Then we have a question from Thomas Cottereau. He's thanking us for this software. You're welcome. Would it be possible to scroll through the names of the projectors in the library when the title of the projector is too long? This is more of a feature request. I'm guessing you are referring to fixtures with very long names that get cut or clamped in different ways. Yeah, we have some plans of redesigning the layout in this view. It's nothing that's ongoing at the moment, but I think some redesign here is overdue by now. So I agree. Then we have a question from Mikkel Bedstead asking, why does Capture allow me to place fixture on top of other fixtures? Would be great if the program could have the physical size in mind so fixtures can't hang too tight. And indeed, there is no collision detection in Capture. There is nothing that prevents you from putting things too close to each other. I can only keep that in mind for future feature planning. Yeah. We have a question from Lamarama who writes, when working on either my laptop or my ultra-wide monitor, I'm never really satisfied with the two options of view arrangements. Resizing of views would be nice. Yes, it would be nice if there was like a splitter here so that you could change the proportions. What I will point out, which may or may not be sufficient or help you, is that you can also undock the views. Especially if you're working on multiple monitors or really wide monitors, this might be the best option actually to sort of create your own custom arrangement like this. And when you save the project and reopen it, they will appear where you left them. And I mean, especially on multi-monitor setups, you do want to take a view and place it on another monitor. That is quite common. I will also, if you or anyone else hasn't spotted it, in the window menu, it is possible to open several of the features from the design and other tabs as separate windows. So if you want, you could have the selected items view available as a second window, which of course you can then put on another monitor. Similarly, you can open the layers list, the fixtures tab. So there is actually some room for flexibility in terms of building different layouts, especially if you have enough monitors to distribute these windows across. All right, thank you. Then Alfonso Torrealba is asking about kidney points. He writes, another thing that happens when we move the kidney points in AutoCAD is that they automatically disappear. I will have to admit I don't understand what you mean by kidney point. I'm also not an avid AutoCAD user, so maybe it's simply something I don't know. So I might need some help there, Alfonso, to decipher what the kidney is about. Moving on to a question from Vincent regarding truss gear. Can we send some truss gear to add it to the library, such as ASD stand? So presumably under truss, there are some stands that we don't have. Let's see. Yeah, there's only one stand from ASD. Yes, of course. Just email library@capture.se. If it's not already on our radar, then we can make sure that it gets added. As long as there is sufficient material available from ASD, of course. But yeah, there has been a lot of truss-related content added over the past years. I mean, originally in Capture there was nothing like this. We only had what we call dynamic trusses that were not modeled by someone but simply generated from dimensions. But since a few years, Anastasia is now, yeah, here's Anastasia. She's modeling trusses for us, for everyone. And if you want to know more about what's being added to the library in terms of stuff like that, then there is a whole forum called Library Announcements, where she posts information about things that have been added recently. So that's good to know if you haven't seen that. You can also subscribe to the forums on the website if you don't want to miss out on anything. But again, just email library@capture.se and we will do our best. And finally, what is possibly going to be the last question tonight is a question from Tommy. Tommy wonders, will 2025 be the year that we get a Black Friday deal for us captureless souls? And I am sorry to disappoint. We have never and probably will never do any Black Friday deals for two reasons. One of them is, quite frankly, we don't quite care to encourage in this whole Black Friday bonanza, which is probably not good for the planet. But, and maybe more importantly, to be honest, we don't do discounts around our dealers. So we have an agreement with our dealers not to do discounts because that would undercut their possibilities. So in theory, a dealer or distributor or reseller could do a discount, but we never do it ourselves. That would be a local decision in that region. But I do hope that your soul can soon get enriched with Capture and that you will become a happy and complete person. Fingers crossed for you. And I will squeeze in one last question before my voice breaks. Alfonso is asking about rigging points. He says that rigging points disappear when you save to AutoCAD the information and notes on weights and coordinates are lost. That is quite possibly the case. So when you export to DWG from Capture, Capture does add attributes to many DWG objects with things like the unit name. For lighting fixtures, we add patch information and so on. Now, when you open the DWG in AutoCAD, those attributes are not visible by default, and that means that you may have to select objects and choose the attributes you want to have visible, in the CAD view in AutoCAD. But a lot of information is still in the DWG. It is quite possible that there is information missing from the rigging points though. So we will try and take a look at that. If you find anything else like that that is missing, then please mail us at capture.se, support@capture.se, and we'll take a look. Yeah. Lama Rama is asking about mirror balls, the holy grail of all disco lovers. Patented in 1917 apparently. Yeah, who knew? Well, he knew. Anyway, I'm not going to even answer that. Instead, I'm going to thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll be able to be back with you soon again. Thank you for your excellent questions. Yeah, and if we don't see you before then I will also wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and all of that, or whatever holidays you happen to celebrate. That's fine by me. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon again.